Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Wanderer's Dream and looked out at the stars. She had been exploring space for 15 years, but the sight still amazed her. The ship was moving slowly through the dark between worlds, far from Earth and far from any other human colony. "Captain, we are getting close to the target system," said Lieutenant Chun from his station. He was young and excited about everything they found out here. The scans show a dead planet with some very old ruins on it. Elena nodded. This was why they were here. The Wanderer's Dream was not a warship. It was built to find things, to study old places, and to learn about the galaxy before humans arrived. Her crew of 200 people were scientists, doctors, engineers, and explorers. They had weapons, but only enough to protect themselves from pirates or wild animals. "Take us into orbit around the planet," Elena ordered. "I want full scans of those ruins before we send anyone down." The planet below them was brown and gray. Once it might have had oceans and forests, but that was millions of years ago. Now it was just rock and dust under a cold sun. But the scans showed something interesting. There were buildings down there, or what was left of buildings. They were made from materials that human science did not understand. "Captain," called out Dr. Sarah Kim from the science station, "these readings are incredible. The ruins are older than anything we have found before. Much older than the Aldari cities on Kepler Prime. Much older than the Vorthan temples on Nu. Sparta? I think these might be from before any of the known races started building cities." Elena felt a chill run down her back. The galaxy was full of old races. The Zephyrians claimed they had been flying between stars for 50,000 years. The Aldari said they were older. But if these ruins were from before all of them, then who built them? "How old?" she asked. Dr. Kim checked her readings again. "The decay patterns suggest at least 5 million years. Maybe 10 million. "Captain, this could change everything we know about galactic history." Elena made her decision. "Prepare 3 teams for surface exploration. I want archaeologists, engineers, and security. We go down tomorrow morning, ship time." The night passed slowly. Elena could not sleep well. She kept thinking about the dead world below and what secrets it might hold. In the morning, she led the first team down to the surface in a shuttle. The ruins were even more amazing up close. The buildings were made from a dark crystal that seemed to absorb light. They rose from the ground in strange patterns that hurt to look at for too long. Some were tall and thin like needles. Others were wide and low like sleeping animals. All of them hummed with a sound too low for human ears to hear, but Elena could feel it in her bones. "The crystal seems to be some kind of computer material," said Dr. Kim as she ran her scanner over a wall. "But it is like nothing in our databases. It is storing information, but I cannot read it." Elena walked deeper into the ruins with her security team. The buildings went down into the ground as well as up into the sky. They found rooms filled with more crystal formations and strange symbols that seemed to move when no one was looking directly at them. "Captain," called Engineer Torres from across the main chamber, "you need to see this." Elena hurried over to where Torres was standing next to a tall pillar of the dark crystal. This one was different from the others. It was perfectly smooth and seemed to glow from inside with a pale blue light. "What is it?" Elena asked. "I think it might be some kind of control system," Torres said. "Look at these patterns. They remind me of the touch controls on Zephyrian technology, but much more advanced." Dr. Kim joined them and began scanning the pillar. "The energy readings are off the charts. This thing is still active after millions of years. The power source must be incredible." Elena studied the pillar carefully. The symbols on its surface did look like they might be controls. They were arranged in patterns that seemed almost familiar, like a language she had once known but forgotten. "Can we activate it safely?" she asked. Dr. Kim frowned. "I do not know. The energy levels are stable, but we do not know what it does. It could be a weapon. It could be a trap. It could be anything." Elena made another decision that would change the galaxy forever. "Set up a safe distance and prepare to record everything. I want to try touching one of the symbols." Her security chief, Major Brooks, stepped forward. "Captain, I should do it. If something goes wrong, ... No, Elena said. Firmly, I am the captain. This is my choice. She walked up to the pillar and studied the symbols. One of them seemed to pulse brighter than the others. It was near the bottom, easy to reach. Elena took a deep breath and pressed her hand against it. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the pillar began to glow brighter. The symbols started moving, flowing like water across the crystal surface. The humming sound got louder until Elena could hear it clearly. Then suddenly, the pillar flashed with brilliant white light. The light shot up through the crystal formations all around them. It traveled through the buildings and into the sky. It kept going up and up until it disappeared among the stars. But Elena knew it had not stopped there. Somehow, she was sure that the light was still traveling, carrying some kind of message to every corner of the galaxy. "What did we just do?" whispered Dr. Kim. Elena did not answer because she did not know. But far away, in the command centers of the Zephyrian Empire, alarms were starting to ring. Fleet Admiral Korith was in his private chambers on the war station Crimson Fist when the alert came in. He was an old soldier with gray skin and 4 arms, each ending in hands that had held weapons for more years than most humans had been alive. His species, the Zephyrians, were proud warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds and crushed hundreds of enemies. "Admiral," came the voice of his aide through the communication system. "High Command needs to see you immediately. There has been an incident in Sector 7 Alpha." Korith sighed and put down the tactical reports he had been reading. Sector 7 Alpha was on the edge of Zephyrian space, near where the new race called humans had been exploring. The humans were young and weak, but they were spreading fast through the galaxy. Some of the High Command worried about them, but Korith thought they were not worth much concern. He made his way to the command center where the other admirals and generals were already gathered around the main display. The screen showed a map of local space with a bright red dot pulsing in Sector 7 Alpha. "Report," Korith ordered. General Dex, the military intelligence chief, activated the display. 17 minutes ago, our deep space sensors detected a massive energy pulse originating from the dead world in the Kepler 442 system. The pulse was unlike anything in our databases. It traveled faster than light and reached every major system within 50 light years. "What kind of pulse?" Korith asked. "Unknown. But Admiral, the energy signature matches some of our oldest records. Records from the Forbidden's archives about the predecessor civilization." Korith felt his blood turn cold. Every race in the galaxy had stories about the predecessors. They were the ones who came before, the ancient builders who left ruins on 1,000 worlds and then vanished without explanation. Most scientists thought they were just myths, but the Forbidden's archives contained evidence that they were real, and that they had possessed technology beyond anything the current galaxy could imagine. "Are you saying someone has activated predecessor technology?" Korith asked. "That is what the evidence suggests," General Dex replied. "And Admiral, we know who was in that system when the pulse occurred." The display changed to show ship identification. Records. Korith read the name and felt his anger rising. "Humans," he growled. The other officers began talking at once. Korith listened to their words and felt his anger grow stronger. The humans had been in Zephyrian space without permission. They had activated ancient and dangerous technology. They had sent some kind of signal across the galaxy that could be anything from a weapon to a call for help. "High Command has made a decision," General Dex announced. "The human ship must be destroyed immediately. We cannot allow them to continue tampering with predecessor sites. We cannot allow them to think they can violate our territory without consequences." "What are my orders?" Korith asked, though he already knew. "Take the Crimson Armada and eliminate the human vessel. Make sure there are no survivors. We want to send a clear message to Earth that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated." Korith smiled for the first time that day. The Crimson Armada was his pride and joy. 500 warships, each one capable of destroying a city from orbit. The best crews in the Zephyrian Navy. Weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop stars. When do we leave? He asked. Immediately. The humans are still in the system, probably trying to study more predecessor ruins. We can catch them before they escape. Korath nodded and began giving orders. Within 2 hours, the Crimson Armada was moving toward the edge of Zephyrian space. 500 ships carrying death toward a single human exploration vessel that had no idea what was coming. On the Wanderer's Dream, Captain Elena Vasquez was still trying to understand what had happened. The crystal pillar had gone dark after the flash of light, and no amount of scanning could get it to respond again. But Dr. Kim and her team had detected something troubling. Captain, we are picking up massive energy signatures approaching this system, Dr. Kim reported. Multiple ships, very large, coming in fast. Elena felt her stomach drop. How many ships? The computers say at least 400. Maybe 500. And Captain, they are not broadcasting any identification signals. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. She knew what this meant. Someone had seen the energy pulse and decided that the humans were a threat. Someone was coming to make sure that Elena and her crew never made it home. All teams, return to the ship immediately, she ordered. Prepare for emergency departure. But even as her people rushed back to the Wanderer's Dream, Elena knew they would not be fast enough. The approaching ships were too close and too fast. In a few hours they would arrive and demand surrender or simply start shooting. Elena looked out at the ancient ruins one last time as her shuttle lifted off. Whatever the predecessors had built, here it had just started a war that could destroy the galaxy. And somehow, she and her crew were going to be right in the middle of it. The Crimson Armada moved through space like a giant metal storm. 500 warships spread out in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming red under the light of distant stars. At the center of this force, Fleet Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Fist, and watched the display screens show their target getting closer. Admiral, we will reach the human ship in 4 hours, reported Captain Vex, his second in command. Our scouts confirm that the vessel is still in orbit around the dead world. They do not seem to know we are coming. Korath nodded with satisfaction. The humans were about to learn what happened when someone disturbed Zephyrian territory. What do we know about their ship? It is called the Wanderer's Dream, Captain Vex replied, reading from his datapad. Length, 800 meters. Crew? Approximately 200? Classification, exploration and research vessel. Defensive capabilities, minimal. They have basic shields and some small weapons, but nothing that could threaten even one of our destroyers. Korath laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 200 humans against 500 Zephyrian warships. This will not even be a battle. It will be an execution. Around the bridge, his officers joined in the laughter. They were all veterans of many wars, soldiers who had fought against the Aldari fleets and crushed the Vorthan rebellion. The humans were new to space, barely out of their own solar system. What could they possibly do against the might of the Zephyrian Empire? Admiral, called out the communications officer. We are receiving intelligence reports about human military capabilities from High Command. Show me, Korath ordered. The main display changed to show detailed information about human weapons and tactics. Korath studied the data with growing amusement. The humans used simple projectile weapons that fired metal bullets. Their ships relied on chemical rockets for power. Their shields were based on magnetic fields that any Zephyrian child could penetrate. Look at this, Korath said, pointing to a section about human battle strategies. They still fight in straight lines like ancient warriors. They use tactics that we abandoned 10,000 years ago. How did such a primitive species even manage to leave their homeworld? Captain Vex scrolled through more reports. Intelligence says they are adaptable and resourceful, but their technology is centuries behind ours. The report recommends caution because humans are unpredictable, but Admiral, I do not see how they could surprise us. Korath dismissed the warning with a wave of his hand. Caution is for fighting equals. This is pest control. We will give them one chance to surrender, and when they refuse, we will vaporize them. On the Wanderer's Dream, Captain Elena Vasquez was having the worst day of her career. The approaching fleet was now close enough for detailed scans, and the numbers made her feel sick. 500 ships, each one bigger and more heavily armed than her entire vessel. "Captain, incoming transmission," reported Lieutenant Chun from the communications station. "It is from the lead ship of the approaching fleet." "Put it on screen," Elena ordered. The main display flickered and showed the bridge of an alien warship. The figure in the center had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes like black stones. He wore a uniform covered in medals and rank insignia. When he spoke, his voice was cold and full of contempt. "Human vessel Wanderer's Dream. I am Fleet Admiral Korath of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. You have violated our territory and activated Forbidden's technology. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your complete destruction." Elena stood up straight and tried to look calm even though her heart was beating like a drum. "Admiral Korath, this is Captain Elena Vasquez. We are a peaceful research vessel. We did not know this system was claimed by your empire. We are willing to leave immediately and discuss this matter through diplomatic channels." Korath's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. "Diplomatic channels? You activated predecessor technology and sent an unknown signal across the galaxy. Such actions cannot be forgiven with words. You have 30 minutes to surrender, or we will destroy you." The transmission ended, leaving Elena staring at a blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew looked terrified. They all knew what a Zephyrian war fleet could do. The stories from the border conflicts were enough to give anyone nightmares. "Options?" Elena asked her senior staff. "We could try to run," suggested Lieutenant Chun. "Our engines are fast for a research ship." "Not fast enough," replied Commander Torres, the chief engineer. "Those warships will catch us before we reach the edge of the system." "We could send a distress signal to Earth," offered Dr. Kim. "Earth is 3 weeks away at best," Elena said. "We would be dead long before any help arrived." Major Brooks, the security chief, cleared his throat. "Captain, there is another option." Elena looked at him. Major Brooks was a former military officer who had served on the front lines during the Proxima War. If anyone knew about fighting impossible odds, it was him. "What option?" Elena asked. "We fight," Brooks said simply. The bridge went quiet except for the humming of the ship's systems. Finally, Dr. Kim spoke up. "Fight? Major, we are 1 research ship against 500 warships. That is not fighting, that is suicide." Brooks shook his head. "Not necessarily." "Captain, may I speak privately?" "With you?" Elena followed Brooks to her ready room, a small office next to the bridge. When the door closed, Brooks activated a security field that would prevent anyone from listening in. "Captain, there are things about this ship that most of the crew do not know," Brooks began. "When the Wanderer's Dream was built, some people in the government were worried about exactly this kind of situation. They were afraid that our exploration ships might run into hostile aliens who would attack first and ask questions later." Elena frowned. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that this ship has more than just research equipment on board. The Wanderer's Dream was built with a secret military upgrade program. Hidden weapons, experimental defensive systems, technology that we reverse-engineered from alien artifacts we found on other worlds." Elena stared at him. "You are telling me that my research ship is actually a disguised warship?" "Not exactly," Brooks replied, "but it has capabilities that no alien species knows about." "Captain, the Zephyrians think they are dealing with primitive humans using primitive technology. They have no idea what we are really capable of." Elena sat down heavily in her chair. "What kind of capabilities?" Brooks activated a hidden panel in the wall and showed Elena a display screen that she had never seen before. It showed weapon systems and defensive technologies that looked like they came from science fiction movies. "Gravitational pulse cannons? Reverse-engineered from Aldery technology," Brooks explained. "Quantum entanglement mines based on Vorthan physics. Shield systems that use principles we learned from studying a crashed ship from an unknown species." "Captain, we have weapons that can bend space and time." The Zephyrians have never seen anything like what this ship can do. Elena studied the display in amazement. How long have you known about this? Since before we left Earth, I was assigned to this mission specifically to protect these secrets. But Captain, using these weapons will reveal to the galaxy that humans are much more advanced than we appear. It will change everything. Elena thought about her crew, about the 500 enemy ships waiting outside, about the choice she had to make. Either she surrendered and let her people die, or she fought back and possibly started a war that could destroy the galaxy. How effective are these weapons? She asked. Very effective, Brooks replied. But Captain, there is something else you need to know. The modifications to this ship are not just weapons. They changed how the ship's computers work, how the engines function, how everything operates. Using these systems will turn the Wanderer's dream into something that should not be possible according to known physics. Elena made her decision. Show me how to activate everything. For the next 20 minutes, Brooks explained the hidden systems built into her ship. Elena learned about weapons that could create black holes, shields that existed in multiple dimensions at the same time, and engines that could move the ship through folded space. It was technology that seemed magical, but it was real and it was hers to command. Captain, came Lieutenant Chun's voice over the communication system. Admiral Korath is transmitting again. Elena returned to the bridge with Brooks following behind her. The display screen showed the Zephyrian Admiral's face again, but this time he looked impatient and angry. Human Captain, your time is up. Have you decided to surrender? Elena looked around at her crew. They were all watching her, waiting for her to save them or lead them to their deaths. She thought about the ancient ruins below, about the signal that had started all of this, about the choice between surrender and fighting. Admiral Korath? Elena said clearly. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth vessel Wanderer's Dream. We are a peaceful research ship, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. I suggest you reconsider your course of action. Korath's eyes went wide with surprise, then narrow. With rage. You dare to threaten me? One small ship against the Crimson Armada? Human, you are either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Elena replied. But Admiral, you should know that humans have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight. It is the size of the fight in the dog. Korath laughed again. Your primitive sayings will not save you. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the human vessel. The transmission ended and Elena watched on her screens as the Zephyrian fleet began to move. 500 warships spreading out like a giant net, preparing to surround and destroy her ship. Their weapons were powering up, their shields were activating, and their engines were pushing them forward with deadly purpose. Major Brooks, Elena said calmly, activate all hidden systems. Show the Zephyrians what humans are really capable of. Brooks moved to a console and began entering codes that Elena had never seen before. Around the ship, systems that had been sleeping for months began to wake up. In hidden compartments, weapons that bent the laws of physics prepared to fire. The ship's computers started calculations that would have been impossible just moments before. All systems active, Captain, Brooks reported. The Wanderer's Dream is ready for battle. Elena looked out at the approaching enemy fleet and smiled grimly. The Zephyrians thought they were hunting a helpless research ship. They were about to learn that they had found something much more dangerous. They were about to learn that humans did not surrender easily, and that human technology was not as primitive as they believed. The battle that would terrify the galaxy was about to begin. The first shots came from the outer ring of Zephyrian destroyers. Bright blue energy beams cut through space toward the Wanderer's Dream, weapons that could melt through the hull of any normal ship. Admiral Korath watched from his flagship as the beams struck their target, expecting to see the human vessel burst into flames and debris. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams hit the human ship and simply disappeared. They did not bounce off shields or get absorbed by armor. They just vanished as if they had never existed at all. What? Korath shouted, staring at his displays in confusion. Fire again! All ships, fire everything. The Crimson Armada unleashed its full power. Thousands of energy beams, plasma cannons, and missile warheads flew toward the single human ship. The space around the Wanderer's Dream lit up like a star as enough firepower to destroy a city hammered against its hull. On the bridge of the Wanderer's Dream, Captain Elena Vasquez watched the enemy weapons strike her ship's shields with no effect. The hidden defensive systems that Major Brooks had activated were working perfectly. The shields did not just stop the incoming fire, they sent it somewhere else entirely. "Report," Elena ordered. "Dimensional displacement shields operating." "At full capacity," reported Lieutenant Chun, reading from displays he had never seen before. "All incoming energy is being redirected into parallel space." "No damage to the ship," Elena nodded. The technology was so advanced that she barely understood it herself, but it was working. The Zephyrians were throwing everything they had at her ship, and none of it was getting through. "Captain," called Major Brooks from the weapons station, "we should return fire now while they are confused." Elena looked at the massive fleet surrounding her ship. 500 war vessels, each one expecting an easy victory. They had no idea what was coming. "Target the nearest destroyer," Elena ordered. "Fire gravitational pulse cannon." Brooks pressed a series of controls that activated weapons no alien species had ever seen before. Deep inside the Wanderer's Dream, machines that manipulated the fabric of space itself began to work. A section of the ship's hull opened and something that looked like a telescope pointed toward the closest Zephyrian destroyer. From the outside, nothing seemed to happen. There was no bright beam, no explosion, no visible sign that anything had been fired. But on the Zephyrian destroyer, alarms began screaming as the ship's sensors detected something impossible. "Captain!" shouted the destroyer's science officer. "Gravitational field approaching." "It's impossible. The readings show a gravity well stronger than a neutron star." The destroyer's captain had no time to respond. The gravitational pulse hit his ship and compressed it into a sphere no bigger than a basketball. 500 Zephyrian crew members and a warship that had taken years to build were crushed into a tiny ball of super-dense matter in less than a second. On the flagship, Admiral Korath watched one of his destroyers simply disappear from his screens. One moment it was there. The next moment there was nothing but empty space and a small object that his sensors could not identify. "What happened to the Crimson Blade?" Korath demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," replied his tactical officer, his voice shaking. "The ship just collapsed. Our sensors show a massive gravitational anomaly where it used to be." Korath stared at the display screen, trying to understand what he was seeing. Ships did not just collapse. Gravity wells that strong did not appear in empty space. What kind of weapon could do such a thing? "All ships maintain attack formation," Korath ordered. "Whatever weapon they used, they cannot have many of them. Continue firing." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire again, but this time Elena was ready to show them something even more terrifying. As the enemy weapons struck her shields, she gave Major Brooks a new order. "Deploy quantum entanglement mines," she said. Brooks activated another impossible system. From hidden launchers around the Wanderer's Dream, small devices shot out into space. They looked harmless, like metal spheres no bigger than basketballs. But as they moved away from the human ship, they began to do something that violated everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about physics. The mines split apart. Each one became 2 identical copies of itself, then 4, then 8. But these were not just copies. They were the same mine existing in multiple places at the same time. The quantum entanglement technology allowed each mine to be in dozens of locations simultaneously while still being the same object. "What are those things?" Admiral Korath asked as his sensors detected the strange devices appearing throughout his fleet. "Unknown, Admiral," his science officer replied. "They appear to be some kind of mine, but they are showing up in multiple locations at once. Our computers say this is impossible." "Destroy them," Korath ordered. The Zephyrian ships began firing at the mines, but every time they destroyed one, it reappeared somewhere else. The quantum entanglement meant that destroying a mine in one location had no effect on its existence in other locations. Worse, as the mines moved through the fleet, they began to activate. The first explosion took out 3 Zephyrian cruisers. At once, the mine detonated in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating a blast that existed in several realities at the same time. The cruisers were not just destroyed, they were erased from existence, removed from the universe as if they had never been built. More explosions followed as the mines reached other ships. Each detonation was impossible, a blast that happened in places where the mine was not supposed to be. The Zephyrian fleet began to panic as ships vanished from reality one by one. "Admiral!" shouted the tactical officer. "We have lost 17 ships. The mines are everywhere and nowhere. Our weapons cannot target them properly." Korath felt fear for the first time in his long military career. This was not a battle. This was something beyond his understanding, beyond his experience, beyond anything he had been trained to fight. "Fall back," he ordered. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance." But Elena was not finished demonstrating human capabilities. As the Zephyrian fleet tried to pull back, she activated the most terrifying weapon in her arsenal. "Major Brooks, activate temporal distortion cannon," she said calmly. Brooks hesitated for a moment. "Captain, are you sure?" "That weapon is experimental. We do not fully understand what it might do." "Activate it," Elena repeated. The temporal distortion cannon was humanity's most dangerous creation, a weapon that attacked the flow of time itself. As it powered up, space around the Wanderer's dream began to shimmer and bend. The ship seemed to flicker in and out of existence as it moved between different moments in time. Elena selected her target, Admiral Korath's flagship, the Crimson Fist. It was the largest ship in the enemy fleet, a massive war vessel that had never known defeat. It would be the perfect demonstration of what happened when someone threatened humanity. The temporal distortion cannon fired. Again, there was no visible beam, no obvious sign of attack. But on the Crimson Fist, something horrible began to happen. Time started moving backward. "Admiral," called the tactical officer, but his voice was strange, slowing down and speeding up randomly. "Something is wrong with the ship's chronometers. Time is moving in reverse." Korath watched in horror as his crew began moving backward through their actions. Computer displays showed events happening in reverse order. The ship's systems started, undoing everything they had done in the past hour. But the reversal was not complete or clean. Parts of the ship moved backward while other parts moved forward, creating a nightmare of twisted metal and impossible geometry. The crew aged backward and forward at random. Some became younger while others grew older in seconds. The ship's hull began to crack as different sections existed in different time streams. Metal that was new became old and rusty, then became new again, then crumbled to dust, then reformed. "Make it stop!" Korath screamed, but his words came out backward and forward at the same time. The temporal distortion spread through the ship like a virus. Weapons fired backward into their own barrels. Shields activated before they were turned on. Crew members experienced their entire lives in random order, remembering things that had not happened yet, and forgetting things that were happening now. Elena watched the enemy flagship tear itself apart as time became twisted and broken around it. The temporal distortion cannon was working exactly as designed, but she felt no joy in using such a terrible weapon. "That is enough," she said quietly. "Shut down the temporal cannon." The distortion field around the Crimson Fist flickered and died, leaving the ship damaged and dead in space. Half the crew was unconscious from temporal shock. The other half was trying to understand what had just happened to them. The ship's systems were ruined, caught between different moments in time. Admiral Korath sat in his command chair, aged 20 years and 20 seconds, staring at displays that showed impossible readings. His fleet of 500 ships had been reduced to less than 400 in just a few minutes. The human ship had not even moved from its position near the dead planet. "Admiral," whispered his communications officer. "The other ships are requesting orders." Korath looked at the single human vessel on his screen. It floated peacefully in space, surrounded by the wreckage of Zephyrian warships and the twisted remains of reality itself. Whatever these humans were, they were not the primitive species that his intelligence reports had described. "Signal the fleet," Korath said slowly. "All ships, prepare for full retreat." "Admiral?" his tactical officer asked in confusion. "We still outnumber them 400 to 1. Korath laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Look around you, officer. Look at what one human ship has done to the pride of the Zephyrian Navy. We came here to destroy a research vessel. Instead, we have found something that can bend reality itself to its will." On the Wanderer's Dream, Elena watched the enemy fleet begin to pull back. But she was not ready to let them leave yet. They had come here to kill her crew and destroy her ship. They needed to understand the price of threatening humanity. "Major Brooks," she said, "do we have any ships in range for the time loop projector?" Brooks checked his displays. "About 50 ships are still close enough, Captain," Elena nodded. "Trap them." The time loop projector was the cruelest weapon humanity had ever created. It did not destroy ships or kill crews. Instead, it trapped them in a small bubble of time that repeated itself endlessly. The victims would experience the same few moments over and over again for eternity, aware that they were trapped but unable to escape. 50 Zephyrian ships suddenly found themselves reliving the last 30 seconds of their lives repeatedly. They watched their sensors detect the human weapons, felt their fear as reality bent around them, tried to flee, and then started the sequence again. They would experience their terror and defeat forever, trapped in a loop of time that had no end. Admiral Korath watched 50 more of his ships stop responding to communications. They were still there, still functional, but they did not answer calls or follow orders. They just floated in space, their crews trapped in temporal prisons. All remaining ships, emergency jump to hyperspace, Korath ordered. "Get us away from this nightmare." But Elena had one final surprise for the retreating Zephyrian fleet. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, she activated the last of her hidden weapons, the reality anchor. The reality anchor was designed to prevent enemies from escaping by making faster-than-light travel impossible in a large area around the Wanderer's Dream, but it did more than just block hyperspace jumps. It stabilized the laws of physics themselves, making the space around the human ship into a zone where only human technology worked properly. The Zephyrian ships found their hyperspace drives failing. Their weapons stopped working, their shields flickered and died. One by one, the remaining ships of the Crimson Armada lost power and drifted helplessly in space. Admiral Korath watched his displays go dark as his flagship lost all power. Emergency lighting came on, casting red shadows across the bridge. In the distance, the human ship continued to float peacefully, surrounded by the broken remains of what had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. "Admiral," whispered his communications officer. "What do we do now?" Korath had no answer. In his 50 years of military service, he had never imagined that such a defeat was possible. One human ship had destroyed, disabled, or trapped nearly 200 Zephyrian warships without taking any damage itself. It had used weapons that should not exist and defenses that violated the laws of physics. Elena Vasquez looked out at the defeated enemy fleet and felt sick to her stomach. She had won the battle, but at what cost? She had revealed to the galaxy that humans possessed technology beyond anything the known species could imagine. She had shown that a single human ship could defeat an entire alien armada. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The age of humans being seen as a young and harmless species was over. From this moment forward, they would be seen as something much more dangerous, something to be feared. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within hours of the battle at the Dead World, every major civilization was receiving the same terrifying message. The Crimson Armada was gone, on the homeworld of the Aldari. Hegemony, Supreme Chancellor Vext H stood in the Great Council chamber reading reports that made no sense. The Aldari were an ancient race, proud of their advanced technology and their long history of peace through strength. They had fought the Zephyrians to a standstill many times over the centuries. They knew exactly how powerful the Crimson Armada was. Read the report again. Vexed H ordered his military advisor. General Kethen cleared his throat and began reading from the datapad in his six-fingered hands. At 14:30 Galactic Standard Time, the Zephyrian Crimson Armada engaged a single human exploration vessel near the Kepler 442 system. Fleet composition: 500 warships including the flagship Crimson Fist, human vessel, the Wanderer's Dream. Classification, research, and exploration, crew of approximately 200. Vexed H raised one of his four hands. Stop, you said. 500 Zephyrian ships against one human ship? Yes, Supreme Chancellor. Continue. Battle duration, approximately 37 minutes. Results, human vessel undamaged. Zephyrian losses, 212 ships destroyed, 50 ships trapped in temporal anomalies, 96 ships disabled, remaining ships retreated with severe damage. No human casualties reported. The council chamber fell silent. The 12 members of the Althari High Council looked at each other with expressions of fear and disbelief. These were beings who had lived for centuries, who had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. But none of them had ever heard of anything like this. How is this possible? Asked Councilor Dextry. Human technology is primitive. We have studied their ships. They use simple fusion reactors and chemical propulsion. Their weapons are projectile-based, kinetic systems. They should not be able to defeat even one Zephyrian destroyer, let alone an entire armada. General Kethen activated a holographic display that showed the battle area. The surviving Zephyria ships transmitted sensor data before they retreated. The human vessel used weapons that our scientists say should be impossible. Gravitational manipulation on a massive scale, temporal distortion fields, quantum entanglement devices that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Supreme Chancellor Vexith studied the display with growing alarm. What are you telling me? That the humans have been lying about their capabilities? We do not know, General Kethen replied. But Supreme Chancellor, if one human research ship can do this, what could a human battle fleet accomplish? What could their entire navy do if they decided to wage war against the galaxy? The implications were staggering. Every member of the council was thinking the same thing. If humans could destroy the Crimson Armada with a single ship, then no civilization in the galaxy was safe from them. Issue immediate orders, Vexed H commanded. All Althari fleets are to retreat to the inner systems. Activate the ancient defense protocols. Begin evacuating our border colonies immediately. Supreme Chancellor, Councilor Mexva protested. We are talking about abandoning 30 star systems. Billions of our people live in those colonies. Better alive and homeless than dead and heroic, Vexith replied grimly. If the humans decide we are their next target, I want our people as far away from their ships as possible. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the crystal cities of the Vorthan Republic, the Senate was in emergency session. The Vorthans were known for their logical thinking and careful analysis, but the reports from the battle zone challenged everything they thought they knew about military power. Senator Quinda read the intelligence reports for the third time. Hoping the words would change, they did not. Colleagues, we must face the reality of our situation. The humans have revealed capabilities that exceed our own by orders of magnitude. If they can manipulate gravity and time itself, then all of our defensive strategies are useless. What do you propose? Asked Senator Velen. Immediate surrender, Quinda replied. We should send diplomatic messages to Earth offering our complete submission before they decide to attack us. The Senate chamber erupted in angry voices. The Vorthans had never surrendered to anyone in their 1,000-year history, but they had also never faced an enemy that could destroy time itself on the mining worlds of the Kreth Confederation. The news caused panic among the heavy industrial species that had built their civilization around asteroid mining and metal production. The Kreth were not warriors, but they were practical beings who understood the value of raw power. Prime Engineer Zakhtar called an emergency meeting of the Industrial Council. The humans need raw materials to build their impossible weapons. If we stop all trade with them, maybe we can slow down their military production. And if we stop trade, what prevents them from simply taking what they need? Asked Engineer Velka. If they can destroy the Zephyrian Navy, they can certainly take our mining stations. The Council voted unanimously to double their tribute payments to every major power in the galaxy, hoping that someone would protect them from the human threat. In the neutral zones between the great powers, smaller civilizations were making desperate decisions. The Jelani Collective, a peaceful species of telepathic traders, sent urgent messages to all their business partners announcing the immediate cessation of all commercial activities. They loaded their entire population onto generation ships and began fleeing toward the galactic rim, as far from human space as they could get. The Silicon Brotherhood, artificial intelligences that had achieved consciousness thousands of years ago, held emergency computational sessions that lasted nanoseconds but felt like years in their accelerated time frame. They calculated millions of possible scenarios and reached the same conclusion in every simulation. Humanity was now the dominant force in the galaxy, and their survival depended on staying as far away from human attention as possible. But the most dramatic reaction came from the Galactic Trade Federation, the loose alliance of merchant species that controlled most of the commercial shipping lanes between worlds. Within 6 hours of receiving the battle reports, they shut down all trade routes that passed within 50 light-years of human space. The economic impact was immediate and catastrophic. Entire star systems that depended on interstellar trade found themselves cut off from essential supplies. Colonies that imported food faced starvation. Worlds that exported raw materials watched their economies collapse overnight. On the trade hub world of Nexus Prime, Merchant Prince Halvin stood in his office overlooking the main spaceport and watched it empty out. Ships that had been scheduled to depart for human colonies were being recalled. Cargo that was destined for Earth was being returned to its senders. "Sir," his assistant said nervously, "the Earth Trade Authority is demanding an explanation for the shipping delays. They say their colonies need these supplies?" Halvin laughed bitterly. "Tell them their supplies have been delayed due to unforeseen circumstances. Do not mention that those circumstances involve us being terrified of their military capabilities." "But sir, if we stop trading with the humans, we will lose billions of credits in revenue." "Better to lose credits than to lose our lives," Halvin replied. "If the humans decide that we are a threat, no amount of profit will matter." The panic was not limited to the major powers. On 1,000 worlds, local governments were making the same decision: get as far away from humanity as possible. Ancient defense systems that had not been activated in centuries were being powered up. Weapons that had been stored in museums were being rushed back into service. Military leaders who had spent their careers planning for wars against known enemies were trying to figure out how to fight beings who could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. On the Zephyrian homeworld, the Imperial High Command was in chaos. Admiral Korath's report had arrived along with the surviving ships of the Crimson Armada, and the evidence was undeniable. The humans had weapons that could destroy reality itself. Emperor Thekval read the battle report in his private chambers, surrounded by his most trusted advisors. The Emperor was old even by Zephyrian standards, having ruled for over 200 years. He had seen his empire grow from a single world to a sprawling dominion that controlled hundreds of star systems. But now, for the first time in his long life, he was afraid. "How many ships do we have left?" the Emperor asked. "Approximately 3,000 warships across all fleets," replied Defense Minister Colin. "But Your Majesty, after what happened to the Crimson Armada, our military leaders are questioning whether numbers matter. If the humans can destroy 500 ships with one vessel, what good are 3,000? What do our scientists say about the human weapons?" "They say the weapons should be impossible, Your Majesty. The gravitational manipulation alone would require energy outputs equal to a star. The temporal distortion technology violates basic principles of physics. Our best physicists cannot explain how such weapons could exist." Emperor Thekval stood and walked to the window of his palace. Outside, he could see the capital city of his empire, home to billions of his people. All of them were depending on him to keep them safe from the human threat. Defense Minister Colin spoke carefully. "We could activate the Doomsday Protocol." The room went silent. The Doomsday Protocol was the Empire's most closely guarded secret, a weapon system that had been built in the early days of Zephyrian expansion. It was designed to destroy entire star systems if the Empire was ever threatened with complete destruction. "You are suggesting we destroy human worlds?" the Emperor asked. "Before they destroy ours, yes. Your Majesty, we have the coordinates of Earth and their major colonies. If we strike first with everything we have, we might be able to eliminate the human threat before they can retaliate." Emperor Thekvel considered the option. It would mean the deaths of billions of humans, but it might save trillions of Zephyrians. The mathematics were simple, even if the moral implications were not. How long would it take to prepare the Doomsday Fleet? 2 weeks, Your Majesty. Do it. But while the Zephyrians planned their desperate attack, other forces were moving across the galaxy. The news of humanity's victory had reached civilizations that had been forgotten by the major powers, ancient species that had withdrawn from galactic politics long ago. In the depths of space, something vast and old began to stir. The Watchers, being so ancient that they remembered the first stars being born, had been sleeping for millions of years. But the energy pulse from the predecessor ruins had awakened them, and now they were watching the galaxy's reaction to humanity with great interest. The Watchers had seen this pattern before. A young species discovers ancient technology, uses it to defend themselves, and accidentally triggers a galaxy-wide panic that leads to wars that destroy entire civilizations. They had watched it happen to the predecessors themselves, and to dozens of other species over the eons. But this time might be different. The humans had shown restraint in their victory, using their impossible weapons defensively rather than aggressively. Perhaps they could break the cycle that had destroyed so many others. The Watchers began to move through the galaxy, heading toward Earth. They had a message to deliver to humanity, a warning about what was coming and a choice that would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Earth, the government was just beginning to understand what had happened. The first reports from the Wanderer's Dream had arrived, along with Captain Vasquez's detailed account of the battle. In conference rooms around the world, military leaders and politicians were trying to comprehend the implications. "You are telling me that one of our research ships defeated 500 alien warships?" asked President Chun, reading the report for the 4th time. "Yes, Madam President," replied Admiral Harrison, the head of Earth's Space Navy. "And according to the technical specifications that Major Brooks has transmitted, every exploration vessel in our fleet has similar capabilities. We just never knew about them." President Chun set down the report and looked around the room at her advisors. "How is it possible that we built weapons this advanced without knowing about it?" "The technology was developed by classified research programs over the past 50 years, explained Dr. Sarah Kim, the head of the Advanced Sciences Division. "Each project was kept separate from the others for security reasons. No one person knew how all the pieces fit together until they were integrated into the exploration ships. And now the galaxy thinks we are some kind of super-powerful military threat?" "Yes, Madam President. Our intelligence networks are reporting massive panic across all known civilizations. Trade has stopped, military fleets are mobilizing, and several species are evacuating their border territories." President Chen closed her eyes and tried to think. Humanity had gone from being a minor player in galactic politics to being seen as the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. All because of one defensive battle. "What do we do now?" she asked. Before anyone could answer, the emergency communication system activated. The voice of the communications officer filled the room with urgency. "Madam President, we are receiving multiple signals from across the galaxy, diplomatic messages, surrender offers, and ... Wait, ... We are also detecting massive fleet movements heading toward our territory. It looks like someone is planning to attack us." President Chun stood up and looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. Somewhere among those stars, the galaxy was preparing for war. And humanity, despite its incredible technology, was still just one species against everyone else. The age of human innocence was over. The age of human survival had begun. 2 weeks after the battle at the Dead World, the galaxy was at war with itself. Not with humanity, but because of humanity. The fear of what humans might do had caused every major civilization to make desperate choices that were tearing the galaxy apart. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Wanderer's Dream and watched the chaos unfolding on her communication screens. Messages were coming in from across known space, and none of them were good news. Trade routes had collapsed. Ancient alliances were breaking apart. Species that had been at peace for centuries were suddenly pointing weapons at each other. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Chun, "we are receiving another diplomatic message from Earth. They want us to return home immediately." Elena nodded but did not move from her position. For 2 weeks, she and her crew had remained at the Dead World, continuing their archaeological work while the galaxy burned around them. They had made an incredible discovery in the ancient ruins, something that might explain everything that had happened. "Any word from the Zephyrian survivors?" Elena asked. "Admiral Korath's ship is still powered down and drifting. The other surviving vessels are maintaining their distance but not trying to leave the system." Elena had offered medical aid to the damaged Zephyrian ships, but they had refused all contact. The alien admiral seemed to be waiting for something, though Elena could not guess what. "Captain," called Dr. Sarah Kim from the archaeology station, "I have finished translating the predecessor message. You need to see this." Elena walked over to where Dr. Kim was working with the ancient crystal artifacts they had recovered from the ruins. The energy pulse that had started everything had awakened more than just a beacon. It had activated an entire library of information, left behind by the civilization that had built this place millions of years ago. "What does it say?" Elena asked. Dr. Kim activated a holographic display that showed symbols and words in multiple languages, including several that Elena recognized as modern galactic languages. The predecessors had somehow predicted that their message would be found by species that did not exist when they wrote it. "It is a warning," Dr. Kim explained. "The predecessors were not the first advanced civilization in this galaxy. They were maybe the 10th or 20th. Each time the same pattern repeated itself. A young species would discover ancient technology, use it to defend themselves, and accidentally trigger a galaxy-wide panic that led to devastating wars." Elena read the translated text with growing horror. What happened to the previous civilizations? They destroyed each other every time. The predecessors watched it happen to the species that came before them, and then it happened to them too. The galaxy would fragment into fear-based alliances. Ancient weapons would be awakened, and eventually everyone would fight everyone else until civilization collapsed. Elena stared at the message, understanding finally dawning on her. "This is happening again, isn't it? The galaxy is destroying itself because it is afraid of us." "Yes," Dr. Kim replied quietly. "And according to this message, there is only one way to break the cycle." Before Dr. Kim could explain further, alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Lieutenant Chin called out from his station with panic in his voice. "Captain, massive hyperspace signatures detected. Multiple fleets are entering the system." Elena ran back to the command station and looked at the tactical display. What she saw made her blood run cold. Ships were appearing all around the Dead World, hundreds of them, coming from every direction. But they were not all from one species. "Identify the fleets," Elena ordered. "Zephyrian Doomsday Fleet approaching from galactic north," Chun reported. "Aldari battle groups from the east. Vorthan war squadrons from the south, and Captain Da. There are ships from species we have never seen before. Ancient designs, technology signatures that do not match anything in our databases." Elena realized what was happening. The galaxy had not come to destroy humanity. It had come to destroy itself. Every major power had decided that the human threat was so great that they needed to use their most desperate weapons, their most forbidden technologies, their most ancient and terrible war machines. "Captain," Major Brooks called from the weapons station, "the Zephyrian Doomsday Fleet is powering up planet-killer weapons. They are not targeting us, they are targeting each other." Elena watched in horror as the greatest military forces in the galaxy began to position themselves for a battle that would destroy everything. The Zephyrians had brought weapons that could crack planets. The Aldari had activated war machines that had been sleeping since their species was young. The Vorthans had awakened artificial intelligences that had been banned for good reason. "Captain," Dr. Kim called urgently, "the predecessor message has more to say. There is a way to stop this, but it requires activating the beacon again." "What will that do?" "The beacon is not just a communication device. It is a key. The predecessors built hidden systems throughout the galaxy, designed to prevent exactly this kind of war. But the systems can only be activated by a species that chooses peace over power." Elena looked out at the massive fleets preparing to destroy each other and made the hardest decision of her life. "Do it. Activate the beacon." Dr. Kim began working with the crystal controls they had discovered in the ruins. "Captain, once I activate this, every species in the galaxy will know where the signal came from. They will know that humans have access to predecessor technology that could control the entire galaxy. Will that make them more afraid of us?" "Probably. But it might also make them stop fighting long enough to listen," Elena nodded. "Better to be feared and alive than ignored and dead. Activate the beacon." Dr. Kim pressed her hand against the crystal pillar, just as Elena had done 2 weeks ago. But this time, she knew what she was doing. The crystal began to glow, and energy pulsed out from the dead world toward every corner of the galaxy, but this pulse was different from the first one. Instead of just carrying a signal, it carried a command. Across thousands of star systems, ancient predecessor installations began to wake up. Devices that had been hidden on dead worlds, sleeping in asteroid fields, and orbiting forgotten stars suddenly activated. The effect was immediate and miraculous. On the Zephyrian Doomsday ships, the planet-killer weapons simply stopped working. The Aldari war machines powered down despite their crew's desperate attempts to restart them. The Vorthan battle computers crashed and refused to reboot. All across the galaxy, the most dangerous weapons that each species possessed became useless. Not broken, not destroyed, just inactive. The predecessor systems had disabled every weapon of mass destruction within 1,000 light years. "What did you do?" Admiral Korath's voice came through the communication system for the first time in 2 weeks. Elena opened the channel to all the fleets in the system. "Admiral Korath, commanders of all fleets, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human vessel Wanderer's Dream. Please stand down your weapons and prepare to receive an important message." "Our weapons are not responding," came a voice from one of the Aldari ships. "Human, what technology are you using?" "It is not our technology," Elena replied. "It belongs to the predecessors, the species that built the ruins on this world. They left behind a message that I think you all need to hear." Elena activated the translation systems and broadcast the predecessor warning to every ship in the system. She told them about the cycle of fear and destruction that had repeated itself many times throughout galactic history. She explained how each advanced civilization had eventually destroyed itself because it could not control its fear of others. The predecessors built their safety systems to prevent this from happening again, Elena continued. But they could only be activated by a species that chose to use ancient power to protect others rather than to conquer them. There was silence on all communication channels for several minutes. Finally, Admiral Korath spoke. "You are saying that your species has been chosen by the predecessors to be the guardians of the galaxy?" "No," Elena replied firmly. "We are saying that any species can be chosen, but only if they make the right choice. The predecessor's message includes instructions for transferring control of their systems to a galactic council made up of representatives from all civilizations. And if we refuse?" asked an Aldari commander. Then your weapons stayed disabled until you change your minds, Elena said. The predecessor systems will not allow the galaxy to destroy itself again. Over the next several hours, Elena transmitted the complete predecessor message to every ship and every government in known space. The message was clear: the galaxy could choose cooperation and peace, or it could choose to remain disarmed and helpless. The choice was not difficult to make. Within a week, representatives from every major civilization had arrived at the dead world to begin negotiations for the Galactic Peace Accord. The ancient planet, which Elena had named Haven, became the site of the most important diplomatic meeting in galactic history. The negotiations were not easy. The Zephyrians demanded guarantees that humans would not use predecessor technology to conquer other species. The Aldari wanted assurances that their ancient enemies would not be given advantages. The Vorthans insisted on logical frameworks for resolving disputes. But slowly, carefully, an agreement was reached. The predecessor technology would be controlled by a council with representatives from every known species. No single civilization would have access to weapons that could destroy others. Trade would resume under new agreements that benefited everyone equally. Most importantly, the galaxy would work together to explore the thousands of predecessor sites that the activated beacon had revealed. The ancient warnings made it clear that there were other threats coming, dangers from outside the galaxy that would require all species working together to survive. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in the command center that had been built on Haven and looked out at the construction work happening all around the ancient ruins. Ships from dozens of species were working side by side, building a permanent base for the new Galactic Council. Any regrets? Asked Major Brooks, who had been promoted to Chief of Galactic Security. Elena thought about the question seriously. About defending my ship and crew? No. About accidentally starting a galactic war? Yes. About helping to end that war and bring everyone together? Definitely not. Dr. Kim approached them with a datapad in her hands. Captain, we have finished translating the last section of the predecessor message. You should see this. Elena read the final part of the ancient warning and smiled grimly. The predecessors had known this day would come. They had known that eventually a species would be wise enough and strong enough to break the cycle of fear and destruction. What does it say? Brooks asked. It says that this galaxy has finally grown up, Elena replied. And just in time, because there are much bigger challenges coming. The predecessors left instructions for defending against threats from other galaxies, but only a united civilization will be strong enough to use them. Elena looked up at the stars and thought about the future. Humanity had gone from being unknown explorers to being the catalyst for galactic unity in just a few weeks. It was not the destiny they had planned for, but it was the destiny they had earned. The galaxy had paid the price for its fear, but it had also learned the value of working together. The age of isolated civilizations was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. And in the vast darkness between galaxies, ancient enemies that had been waiting for millions of years sensed the activation of predecessor technology and began their long journey toward a galaxy that was finally ready to defend itself. The real test of galactic unity was still to come.
Jack Miller stood at the viewing port of the Galactic Council headquarters, looking out at the swirling nebula that served as a backdrop to the massive space station. 50 years had passed since humanity joined the Council, and in that time, Earth had contributed more technological innovations than many species who had been members for centuries. Yet something felt off lately. The Council members had been less forthcoming, meetings more secretive. Ambassador Miller, the Granthi delegate is requesting to postpone your meeting again, said Tom Reed, his aide and friend of 15 years. The young man's face showed the same concern Jack had been feeling for weeks. That's the third time this month, Jack replied, turning away from the view. Something isn't right, Tom. I've been on this station long enough to know when I'm being avoided. The council chamber, an enormous circular room with seats for representatives of over 200 species, had once felt like a place of possibility to Jack. Now the empty seats seemed ominous as he walked through during the station's night cycle. "Security is lighter tonight," Tom observed, keeping his voice low. "The Zenith guards changed their patrol pattern last week." Jack nodded. "Perfect timing for what I have planned." For months, Jack had been building a network of allies who shared his suspicions. One of them was Lisa, a blue-skinned scientist from the Terran system whose species had joined the Council only 20 years after humans. "The archives should be empty now," Jack said, checking his communication device. "Lisa will loop the security feeds for exactly 18 minutes. Tom looked nervous but determined. "Enough time to get in and out. If what your source said is true, we'll know soon enough." The two men moved through the dimly lit corridors of the station's lower levels. Jack used his ambassador's override codes to access areas that were technically permitted but rarely visited by non-archivists. The door to the secure records slid open with a soft hiss. "Remember, we're looking for files from the Strategic Planning Committee meetings from the last 6 months," Jack whispered as they moved between tall data storage units. Tom nodded and began searching through one section while Jack took another. The minutes ticked by as they scanned through thousands of records. "Jack," Tom's urgent whisper cut through the silence. "I found something. It's encrypted, but it has Earth's designation code attached." Jack hurried over. The file was indeed heavily protected, but as an ambassador, he had higher clearance than most realized. He applied his security key, and the file began to decrypt. "We have 11 minutes left," Tom reminded him. The holographic display flickered to life, projecting the contents of the file into the air before them. As Jack read, his face grew pale. This can't be right," he said, his voice barely audible. The document detailed plans for a complete quarantine of Earth and all human colonies. The Council had secretly voted to classify humans as a disruptive species that was evolving too rapidly for galactic stability. The final phase included the harvesting of Earth's resources after its population was relocated to designated habitation sectors. "They're planning to contain us, then strip our world bare," Jack said, the reality sinking in. "According to this, they've already begun sabotaging our colonial expansion efforts and limiting our military technology." "They're planning to contain us, then strip our world bare," Jack said, the reality sinking in. "According to this, they've already begun sabotaging our colonial expansion efforts and limiting our military technology." Tom's hands shook as he downloaded the files to a secure device. "There's more, Jack. Look at the dates on these operations. Some of these sabotage efforts began 40 years ago. They'd never trusted us." Jack continued reading, discovering that several human space accidents previously thought to be technical failures had actually been orchestrated by Council operatives. The loss of the Mars settlement ship with 300 colonists, the mysterious explosion at the Jupiter research station, all deliberate actions to slow human advancement. "We need to download everything and get back to Earth," Jack decided, his mind racing. "We have to warn them." A soft alert from Tom's device warned them that they had only 5 minutes remaining before the security feeds would return to normal. They worked quickly, copying as many files as they could. Just as they finished, the main lights in the archive suddenly brightened. Someone was coming. "Hide," Jack hissed, pulling Tom behind a large data column. The door slid open, and 2 Zenith guards entered, their crystalline armor catching the light. Behind them walked Counselor Drex, one of the 7 High Counselors who led the Galactic Council. The system flagged an access to the restricted files, one guard reported. "Someone is in here." Jack knew they couldn't escape without being seen. He touched his communication device, sending an emergency signal to Lisa. Seconds later, alarms began blaring throughout the station. "Station emergency protocols activated," announced the automated system. "All personnel report to safety zones." The guards hesitated, looking to Counselor Drex for instruction. "Check the archives quickly," Drex ordered. "Then we must follow protocols." As the guards moved deeper into the archive, Jack and Tom slipped out behind them, using the confusion to escape into the corridor. They ran, moving with the flow of other species heading toward their designated safety areas. "We need to get to Lisa's lab," Jack said between breaths. "She has a ship prepared." When they arrived at the laboratory section, Lisa was waiting for them, her blue skin pale with worry. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Jack nodded grimly. "Worse than we imagined. They've been planning our destruction from the beginning." Lisa didn't look surprised. Many younger species have faced similar treatment. "My own world only escaped resource harvesting because our sun became unstable, making long-term operations impossible." She led them through her lab to a hidden docking port where a small but fast ship waited. It wasn't marked with Council symbols, which meant it could slip away without immediate tracking. "This will get you to the jump point," Lisa explained. "From there, you can reach Earth in 3 days." Tom loaded their equipment while Jack turned to Lisa. "Come with us. When the Council discovers what we've taken, they'll suspect everyone." Lisa shook her head. "I have others to warn. Not all Council species agree with this plan. Some will stand with humans if they know the truth." Alarms continued to sound as the false emergency Lisa had triggered kept the station in confusion. It wouldn't last much longer. "Thank you," Jack said, grasping her hand in the traditional human gesture of gratitude. "Humans helped my people when our colonies faced starvation 5 years ago," she replied. "We remember our friends." She pressed a data crystal into his hand. "Take this. It contains names of potential allies among the Council species." Jack and Tom boarded the ship as Lisa prepared the docking bay for their departure. "If we make it back to Earth with this information, what happens next?" Tom asked as they strapped in. Jack's expression hardened as he initiated the launch sequence. "Then humanity shows the Galactic Council exactly why they were right to fear us. Not because we're violent, but because we don't take betrayal lightly." The small ship detached from the station and accelerated away, carrying with it the evidence of a deception 50 years in the making, and the spark that would soon ignite humanity's response to the Council's betrayal. The small ship carrying Ambassador Jack Miller and his aide Tom Reed emerged from the jump point near Earth's moon. After 3 days of tense travel, the familiar blue sphere of their home planet filled the view screen. "Home," Tom said, relief evident in his voice. "I wasn't sure we'd make it." Jack nodded grimly. "That Council patrol near the Orion jump point almost had us. They're already looking for the data we took." Earth Space Command detected their approach immediately. 6 defensive ships surrounded them before they could even establish communication. "Unidentified vessel. This is Earth Defense Force. Identify yourself and state your purpose," came the stern voice over the comm. "This is Ambassador Jack Miller, Diplomatic Code Alpha 7 Delta 9. I need to speak with the Earth Government Council immediately. Priority 1. There was a pause. Then, "Ambassador Miller, you're 2 weeks early from your scheduled return. Please stand by for verification." After a tense minute, the defense ships adjusted their formation. "Ambassador, you're cleared for landing at Washington Spaceport. An escort is being provided." Jack looked at Tom. They sensed something's wrong. That's no standard greeting party down there. The landing was swift and efficient. As they descended the ramp, Jack saw General Kate Roberts waiting with a security team. Her presence confirmed his suspicions. Earth's military leadership was already concerned. "Ambassador," she greeted him with a stiff nod. "We received your emergency signal. The Council is assembled and waiting." "Thank you, General." Jack handed her the secure data device. "This needs to be analyzed immediately." Within an hour, Jack and Tom sat in the Earth Government headquarters, facing the 12 leaders who represented humanity's unified government. Admiral Wilson, the head of Earth's military forces, stood near a large display screen. "Ambassador Miller," began President Chen, her expression grave. "Please explain what was so urgent that you abandoned your post without authorization." Jack took a deep breath. "Madam President, members of the Council, I discovered evidence that the Galactic Council has been planning to betray humanity since our admission 50 years ago. He gestured to Tom, who activated the files they had stolen. The room fell silent as images and documents appeared on the main screen. These files confirm that the Council classified Earth as a disruptive species decades ago. They've been sabotaging our colonial efforts, limiting our military advancement, and preparing for what they call resource reclamation of Earth itself. President Chen's face hardened as she read the translated documents. Are you certain these are authentic? Admiral Wilson stepped forward. Madam President, our intelligence division has completed initial verification. These documents match known Council formats and encryption methods, and he paused, his expression darkening. They align with several incidents we've been investigating for years. The Admiral activated his own display, showing a star map with dozens of marked locations. Each of these points represents a colonial mission failure or accident in the past 40 years. We always suspected some weren't accidents, but couldn't prove interference. Jack watched as the reality sank in with Earth's leaders. The betrayal was enormous. 50 years of false friendship, while the Council planned humanity's downfall. Dr. Gray, Earth's leading genotechnologist, spoke next. Ambassador Miller, did you find any indication of when they plan to implement the final phase of this operation? According to the documents, they're still in the preparation stage, Jack replied. But there are references to an optimal window opening within 2 Earth years. The room erupted in urgent discussions until President Chen raised her hand for silence. Admiral Wilson, what is Earth's true military capability if we face the combined Council forces? This was the question everyone feared. The Council included over 200 species, many with technologies thousands of years more advanced than Earth's. At least officially. Admiral Wilson's expression changed slightly. Madam President, with your permission, I believe it's time to activate Protocol Omega. Several Council members looked confused, but President Chen nodded immediately. Authorized. Security level maximum. The room's systems hummed as advanced security protocols engage. Even the air seemed to change as sound dampening fields activated. What is Protocol Omega? Asked Jack, looking around in confusion. Admiral Wilson's posture straightened. Ambassador, what I'm about to share has been kept secret from everyone outside this room, including our Galactic Council allies. The display changed to show military installations and ships unlike anything Jack had seen in Earth's official fleet. 50 years ago, when we joined the Council, Earth's military leadership made a decision. We would share some technologies and appear to integrate fully with galactic society, but we would always maintain separate, hidden development programs. Dr. Gray stepped forward. We reverse-engineered every piece of technology the Council shared, then pushed it further. We have research outposts in dimensional pockets undetectable to Council sensors, manufacturing facilities inside rogue planets, test sites in parallel probability spaces. Jack stared in disbelief. You're saying we've been deceiving the Council while they were deceiving us? Call it insurance, Admiral Wilson replied. Humanity has always understood that in the wider galaxy, we might one day stand alone. The display showed what appeared to be normal civilian ships transforming, revealing hidden weapon systems and defensive capabilities. Every colony ship we've sent out in the past 30 years has been equipped with dormant military technology, the Admiral continued. Every mining operation has secondary manufacturing capabilities. We have a fleet 3 times the size of what the Council believes exists. President Chen addressed the room. The question now is, how do we respond? Do we strike first, knowing what they planned for us? Admiral Wilson shook his head. No, Madam President. A preemptive strike would confirm their worst fears about humanity and turn neutral species against us. I propose we issue a warning. A warning? One Council member scoffed. Against the entire Galactic Council. Yes, Admiral Wilson said firmly. We demonstrate our true capabilities in a way that cannot be ignored, present our evidence of their betrayal to all Council species simultaneously, and give them a choice. Leave humanity in peace or face the consequences. Jack thought about Lisa and the data crystal she had given him. There are species within the Council who might stand with us if they knew the truth. Not all approve of the plans against Earth. Tom, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The Council believes humans are unpredictable and dangerous because we evolve quickly. Perhaps it's time to show them just how right they are. President Chen considered all she had heard, then straightened in her chair. Admiral Wilson, how quickly can we mobilize our true fleet? 72 hours to full combat readiness, Madam President. Dr. Gray, can you prepare a transmission package with evidence of the Council's betrayal that can be sent to every species simultaneously? Dr. Gray nodded. Yes, Madam President. My team can have it ready in 24 hours. President Chen looked at each person in the room. Then in 3 days, humanity will issue its response. We will show the Galactic Council that we discovered their betrayal, we are prepared for it, and we are giving them one chance to reconsider. Jack felt a strange mixture of dread and pride as he watched Earth's leaders unite in purpose. Ambassador Miller, President Chen said finally, you will deliver our message personally. It's time for the Council to learn that humans don't take betrayal lightly. And we certainly don't face it unprepared. The Grand Council chamber buzzed with confused voices. Representatives from over 200 species had been summoned for an emergency session, yet no one knew who had called it. The 7 High Councilors themselves looked perplexed as they took their seats at the elevated platform. Order. We will have order, demanded High Councilor Drex, his voice booming through the massive circular room. We are attempting to determine who activated the emergency protocols. As the chamber slowly quieted, the massive central holographic display flickered to life, showing only a simple Earth emblem. A ripple of whispers passed through the assembled representatives. What is the meaning of this? Councilor Mira of the ancient Thran species asked, her elongated fingers tapping impatiently on her control panel. Where is the human ambassador? As if answering her question, the enormous doors at the main entrance slid open. Ambassador Jack Miller walked in, flanked by 6 humans in military uniforms. Admiral Wilson led them, his face expressionless as he surveyed the chamber. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Jack began, his voice amplified throughout the room. 3 days ago, I discovered evidence of a betrayal so profound that it threatens the foundation of trust upon which this council was built. The holographic display changed, showing classified council documents and plans involving Earth. Several council members shifted uncomfortably as they recognized the files. For 50 years, humanity has participated in good faith as members of this galactic community, Jack continued. Yet for those same 50 years, certain members of this council have been planning our containment, exploitation, and eventual destruction. High Councilor Drex rose from his seat. Ambassador Miller, these accusations are serious and unfounded. Whatever documents you claim to have found are clearly forgeries designed to. They are not forgeries, interrupted Admiral Wilson, stepping forward. We have verified their authenticity, including the signatures authorizing the sabotage of human colonies that resulted in the deaths of thousands of our people. The display shifted to show scenes of colonial disasters, followed by the confidential council reports that revealed their true cause. Jack's voice hardened. We have transmitted these documents to every member species of the council, not just to your representatives here, but directly to your homeworlds and colonies. Your citizens are viewing this evidence as we speak. Chaos erupted in the chamber as representatives frantically checked their communication devices, confirming Jack's claim. The humans had somehow bypassed all security protocols to broadcast directly to hundreds of worlds simultaneously. This is an outrage, shouted one representative, a violation of council sovereignty. High Councilor Nexus of the Elder Vitri species had remained silent until now. Unlike the others, his ancient eyes showed not anger but deep concern. How did you manage such a transmission? He asked quietly, yet his voice carried through the chamber. Our security systems should have prevented it. Admiral Wilson allowed a small smile. That brings us to the second part of our message today. The main doors opened again, and screens throughout the chamber showed the space outside the council station. A collective gasp rose as representatives saw what appeared in the viewport. A human fleet had emerged from jump points surrounding the council homeworld. Not the small defensive force the council believed Earth possessed, but hundreds of advanced warships unlike any they had previously revealed. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Mira. "Our intelligence indicated the humans have only 47 warships." "Your intelligence was wrong," replied Jack simply. "Just as you were wrong to believe we would not discover your betrayal. Just as you were wrong to think we would not prepare for it." The central display now showed technical specifications of the human fleet, advanced shielding systems, weapons based on dimensional phase technology, and artificial intelligence integration far beyond what the Council believed humans possessed. "You see before you only 1/10 of Earth's true military capability," Admiral Wilson stated. "We could have struck without warning, as you planned to do to us. Instead, we choose to issue a final warning." Jack stepped forward again. "Humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We demand all Council forces withdraw from human space within 7 days. Any Council vessel found within our territories after that time will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." The Elder Counselor Nexus rose slowly from his seat, his ancient form trembling slightly, not with fear, but with the weight of memory. "I have lived through 17 galactic cycles," he said, his voice carrying the weight of eons. "I have seen species rise and fall. I have witnessed the birth and death of civilizations, and I recognize what stands before us today." The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to the Elder. "Once, 100,000 years ago, we encountered another species that evolved as quickly as humans. They, too, hid their true capabilities. They, too, prepared for betrayal." His ancient eyes fixed on Admiral Wilson. "We underestimated them, as we have underestimated you." "What happened to them?" asked a young representative from the back of the chamber. "They destroyed themselves through their own aggression," Nexus answered. "The question now is whether humans will follow the same path." Admiral Wilson met the ancient being's gaze. "That is entirely up to you. Humanity does not seek war. We seek only to exist without the threat of extinction hanging over us." The display changed again, showing a star map with clear boundaries marking human territory. It was far larger than what the Council had previously recognized, including systems the humans had secretly colonized. "These are our terms," Jack announced. "Respect our boundaries. End all sabotage operations against human interests. Acknowledge our sovereignty. Do these things, and peace is possible." Several of the younger Council species representatives were already in heated discussions. Some were openly supportive of the human position, particularly those who had faced similar treatment from the dominant Council powers. "And if we refuse these demands?" asked High Counselor Drex, his voice tight with controlled rage. In answer, one of the human ships demonstrated a previously unknown technology. It created what appeared to be a small, controlled dimensional rift beside an uninhabited moon, causing a section of the celestial body to simply vanish into another reality. The demonstration sent shockwaves through the Council chamber. "That technology is forbidden," shouted a representative from the back. "By your laws, not ours," replied Admiral Wilson calmly. "We no longer recognize Council authority. We are giving you a choice that we ourselves never received, the opportunity to avoid conflict." Jack looked around the chamber one last time. His eyes found Lisa among her species delegation. She gave him a nearly imperceptible nod. "You have 7 days to respond," Jack concluded. "Choose wisely." As the human delegation turned to leave, the Elder Counselor Nexus spoke once more. "Ambassador Miller," he called, his ancient voice resonating with something like respect. "In all our calculations about human potential, what did we miss? How did your species prepare so thoroughly for a betrayal you shouldn't have suspected? Jack paused at the doorway. Because throughout our history, every time humans have encountered a more advanced civilization, we've suffered. So when we reached the stars and found you, we hoped for the best, but prepared for exactly what we found. The doors closed behind the human delegation, leaving the council in stunned silence as the fleet outside maintained its perfect formation, a visible reminder that the galaxy had changed forever. For 6 days, the Galactic Council debated furiously behind closed doors. Some species argued for immediate compliance with human demands, while others insisted that giving in to such threats would set a dangerous precedent. The elder races remained unusually quiet, their ancient minds calculating possibilities that younger species could not yet comprehend. On the 7th day, as the deadline approached, the Council made its decision. Admiral Wilson stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Defiance, reviewing defense system reports when the communication officer called out, "Admiral, we're detecting multiple jump signatures at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system." Wilson's expression remained calm. "Show me." The main display activated, revealing a massive Council armada emerging from jump points near Earth's closest colony. Over 300 warships from 24 species formed attack formations. "They've made their choice," Wilson said quietly. He opened a channel to Earth Command. "Madam President, the Council has launched a preemptive strike against Proxima Colony. Request permission to activate Defense Protocol Theta." President Chen's voice came through clearly. "Permission granted, Admiral. Show them exactly what they're dealing with." Wilson nodded to his communications officer. "Send the signal to all ships and colonies. Theta Protocol is now active." Throughout human space, hidden defense systems awakened. On seemingly ordinary colony worlds, massive sections of landscape slid away to reveal weapons platforms. Mining stations transformed into battle stations. Civilian ships reconfigured into their true military forms. At Proxima Centauri, the colony's governor, Mark Davis, received the alert and immediately activated their planetary defense grid, technology that the Council had no idea existed. His hands moved swiftly across the control panel. "All non-essential personnel to shelters," he ordered. "Defense grid to full power. Activate the shield network." Outside, the first wave of Council ships approached the seemingly vulnerable colony. Their sensors showed minimal defenses, exactly what they expected from Earth's second-largest but still developing colony. The Council Fleet Commander, General Crusade of the militant Boltar species, smiled with satisfaction. The humans bluffed. "This colony is practically defenseless. Begin the attack sequence. Show them the price of defiance." The first volley of energy weapons fired from 50 Council warships simultaneously, enough firepower to level the entire main settlement. But the shots never reached their targets. A shimmering energy field materialized around the colony, absorbing the attack completely. Then, from orbital positions where Council sensors had detected nothing, 30 human ships decloaked. On their colony command center, Governor Davis watched calmly. "Return fire. Targeted disabling shots only. Remember the Admiral's orders. We demonstrate power, not vengeance." The human ships fired weapons unlike anything the Council had seen before. They didn't use typical energy beams or projectiles. Instead, small dimensional rifts opened directly inside the Council vessel's engine compartments and weapon systems, selectively removing key components without harming crew members. Aboard his command ship, General Crusade watched in horror as ship after ship in his fleet lost power and weapons capability without a single casualty. "Impossible," he shouted. "How are they doing this? Where are these weapons in our intelligence reports?" His tactical officer stared at readings in disbelief. "General, they're using some form of targeted dimensional manipulation. They're not destroying our ships. They're surgically disabling them." In near-Earth space, Admiral Wilson monitored the situation. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. Throughout Council space, hidden human installations activated simultaneously. These weren't weapons, but rather specialized transmission systems, planted decades ago by humans posing as traders, tourists, and diplomatic staff. On thousands of worlds, the truth about the Council's plans for Earth appeared on communication networks. Not just the evidence Jack had discovered, but complete operational plans, names of those responsible, and the long history of the Council's exploitation of younger species. At the Council headquarters, chaos reigned as representatives demanded explanations from the High Councilors. "You planned the same for my world," accused the representative from Tellus, a relatively new council member. "These documents show we were next after Earth." Similar accusations flew across the chamber as centuries of secrets unraveled in minutes. Back at Proxima Colony, over 200 council ships now drifted powerless. Not a single human vessel had been lost. Not one human life had been taken. Governor Davis opened a communication channel to the disabled council fleet. "General Kraz, your attack has failed. Your ships are disabled, but your life support systems remain functional. We will provide emergency transport for your crews if needed." On the Defiance, Admiral Wilson received an urgent message from one of his captains. "Admiral, we're detecting another jump signature, much larger than the first wave." Wilson nodded grimly. "The main council fleet. They're committing everything." Near Jupiter, the space seemed to ripple as the primary council armada emerged. Over 500 capital ships, led by the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion. High Councilor Drex himself commanded this fleet, determined to crush the human rebellion once and for all. "The humans have some new technology," he addressed his fleet commanders. "But they cannot stand against our combined might. All ships, prepare for final approach to Earth." Before the order could be carried out, Admiral Wilson gave a simple command: "Activate the fold." Throughout the Sol system, hidden generators powered up. The technology had been Earth's most closely guarded secret, the ability to create a controlled dimensional pocket around an entire star system. Space itself seemed to bend around the Council fleet. The stars shifted position. Earth and its orbital defenses simply vanished from their sensors. "What's happening?" demanded Councilor Drex. "Where did they go?" His science officer worked frantically at her station. "Counselor, we haven't moved." "They have. They've somehow folded their entire system into a dimensional pocket. We're now effectively in a different reality from Earth." "That's impossible. No species has mastered system-wide dimensional manipulation." A communication channel opened on the Eternal Dominion's main display. Admiral Wilson's face appeared, calm and resolved. "High Councilor Drex, as you can see, your weapons cannot reach us. We exist slightly out of phase with your reality at this moment, but our weapons can still reach you." To demonstrate, a small human vessel no larger than a shuttle appeared near the Eternal Dominion. It fired a single pulse that passed through the dreadnought's shields as if they didn't exist, precisely disabling its main power core. The mighty flagship of the Council fleet went dark, emergency systems barely maintaining life support. "This is our final warning," Admiral Wilson continued. "We have shown restraint. We have taken no lives despite your unprovoked attack. But our patience has limits." Throughout Council space, more and more species were breaking ranks, declaring neutrality or even offering alliance with Earth after seeing the evidence of the High Council's plans. On a dozen worlds, revolutions began as populations learned how their leaders had conspired with the Council against their interests. The galactic order of thousands of years was collapsing in a single day. Admiral Wilson's voice carried across every Council communication channel. "The choice remains the same. Leave humanity alone, or face consequences beyond your comprehension. You have 1 hour to recall all military forces from human space and acknowledge our independence." As the ultimatum was delivered, the small human ship near the Eternal Dominion disappeared back into its dimensional fold, leaving the Council fleet floating powerless in the void, a perfect symbol of how quickly the balance of power had shifted in the galaxy. 1 month after the confrontation at Jupiter, representatives from 27 galactic species gathered in the Great Hall of Unity on Earth. The massive dome structure had been built in just 3 weeks using human dimensional folding technology, a deliberate demonstration of capabilities that were now being openly shared with allies. Jack Miller stood at the entrance, watching as the delegates arrived. Each species had broken from the Galactic Council to join what was being called the Stellar Cooperative. Some had done so out of fear after witnessing human power, others from genuine belief in a better system, and many because the evidence of the Council's planned betrayals against their own worlds had left them no choice. "Quite a change from the Council chambers," said Tom, now appointed as Jack's deputy ambassador. Jack nodded. "The difference is that everyone here chose to come. No one was coerced." That wasn't entirely true. The human demonstration of power had certainly influenced decisions, but Earth had been careful to extend genuine friendship along with that show of strength. Inside the hall, Admiral Wilson was speaking with Lisa, whose species had been among the first to formally align with Earth. "The Thran delegation has finally arrived," Lisa informed him. "That makes all invited parties present." "And the Council?" Wilson asked. "Fractured beyond repair," Lisa replied. After the evidence was released, over half their member species either declared independence or demanded reform. The High Counselors have all resigned or been removed. The elder races have withdrawn to their core systems. Wilson nodded, satisfied but not triumphant. "We never wanted to destroy them, just to ensure our own survival." President Chen entered the hall, and all conversations quieted. She took her position at the central podium, surveying the gathered representatives. "Friends, allies, and fellow survivors of Council manipulation," she began. "1 month ago, humanity stood alone against a threat centuries in the making. Today, we stand together to build something better." The display behind her activated, showing a new map of the galaxy with territories clearly marked in different colors. The old Council believed in hierarchy and control. They classified species as mature or developing, using that classification to justify exploitation. Our cooperative recognizes the unique contributions of all members, regardless of technological development. Dr. Gray stepped forward, activating a holographic display showing technical schematics. "As a sign of our commitment to this principle, Earth is sharing key technologies with all cooperative members. Defensive systems first, to ensure each world's security, followed by medical, environmental, and transportation advances." Jack watched the delegates' reactions. There was still caution, still some fear of these humans who had humbled the mighty Council without firing a killing shot. But there was also hope, something many species hadn't felt in centuries under the Council's rule. At the back of the hall, a door opened quietly. Elder Counselor Nexus entered, his ancient form moving slowly down the center aisle. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to this unexpected visitor. President Chen showed no surprise. "Elder Nexus, you honor us with your presence." The ancient being inclined his head slightly. "I come not as a Council representative, but as an observer. What happens here will shape the galaxy for millennia to come." He moved to a viewing area, his deep eyes studying the proceedings with the perspective of one who had seen civilizations rise and fall dozens of times. The meeting continued for hours as the framework for the new cooperative took shape. Unlike the hierarchical council, this organization would operate on principles of transparency, mutual defense, and technological sharing. Most revolutionary was the requirement that all diplomatic agreements be shared with the species' general population. No more secret deals made by leaders without their people's knowledge. As the session ended for the day, Jack approached Elder Nexus, who stood staring at a large viewport overlooking Earth's night side, the lights of cities gleaming below. "Elder Nexus, may I ask why you really came?" Jack asked directly. The ancient being turned slowly. "In my 17 galactic cycles of life, I have seen this pattern before. A young species rises, discovers betrayal, and responds with force. Usually, they then become the very thing they fought against. And you came to see if humans would follow that path." "Yes." The elder's eyes seemed to look through Jack rather than at him. Your species concerns many of the ancient races, not because of what you did, but because of how you did it. How we did it. You had the power to destroy the Council completely, to eliminate those who plotted against you. Yet you disabled rather than destroyed. You revealed truth rather than impose your will. This is unusual. Jack considered his words carefully. Our history is filled with examples of what happens when power is used for vengeance rather than justice. We didn't want to repeat those mistakes on a galactic scale. Elder Nexus made a sound that might have been a laugh. So young, yet you speak with the wisdom that many of my kind have forgotten. He gestured toward the bustling hall. This cooperative of yours, it will face challenges. Some members join out of fear, others from opportunism. We know, Jack acknowledged. Building trust takes time, but it has to start somewhere. In another part of the hall, Admiral Wilson and Dr. Gray stood together, watching Earth's rotation from a different viewport. Do you think we did the right thing? Dr. Gray asked quietly. Revealing all our technologies at once could have consequences we haven't foreseen. Wilson's expression remained thoughtful. We kept secrets because we feared betrayal. Now we need to build something based on openness. He paused. Besides, we haven't revealed everything. Dr. Gray raised an eyebrow. You mean Project Sentinel? Some insurance policies are worth maintaining, Wilson replied. At least until this new arrangement proves itself. The next morning, the formal signing of the Stellar Cooperative Charter began. Each species representative approached the central table to add their signature or equivalent mark to the document. When all had signed, President Chen addressed the assembly once more. Today marks not an ending but a beginning. The principles we establish here will be tested. There will be disagreements, challenges, even threats from those who prefer the old ways. But standing together, we can face whatever comes. As if on cue, an aide hurried to Admiral Wilson, whispering urgently in his ear. Wilson's expression darkened as he moved to join President Chen. Madam President, we've detected multiple ships approaching from the direction of former Council space. They're not responding to communications. The room tensed as the information spread quickly among the delegates. Was this to be the first test of the new alliance? President Chen remained calm. What species? Unknown, Wilson replied. The configuration doesn't match any in our database. Elder Nexus stepped forward, his ancient eyes suddenly alert. They have come sooner than expected. You know who they are? Jack asked. They exist beyond the Council's chartered space. We encountered them once, millennia ago, and established a non-interference pact. The Elder's voice carried a rare note of concern. They monitor the galaxy for shifts in power. Your confrontation with the Council would have drawn their attention. President Chen addressed the now anxious delegates. It seems our cooperative faces its first challenge sooner than expected. But unlike the old Council, we will face it together with honesty and unity. Jack looked around the room at the diverse species who had, just a month ago, been part of a system planning humanity's downfall. Now they stood as allies, brought together by human determination and restraint. This is the true test, Tom said quietly beside him. Not whether we could defeat the Council, but whether we can build something better in its place. As the delegates moved to emergency sessions to address the approaching unknown ships, Jack found himself standing next to Elder Nexus once more. You were right to warn your people as you did, the ancient being said unexpectedly. And they were right to prepare rather than trust blindly. He turned his ancient eyes to Jack. Perhaps humans truly are different. The coming days will tell. Jack nodded, watching as human and alien representatives worked together with newfound purpose. Whatever comes next, we face it as equals. The galaxy had changed forever, not through destruction, but through humanity's final warning and the new beginning it had created.